I know growing up that food was a catalyst for bringing people together. And that's one of the things I really wanted to do when we created Stacked as well. You can become a community.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
It's Mars B.
And Kavo.
And this is The Vault at 201 North Broadway.
A business podcast.
Where we bring you entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders of Montana.
To share their stories, expertise, industry insights, and strategies.
And we are sharing them all with you every single week.
You don't want to miss this.
Learn how to better start, manage, and grow your business.
And your leadership style.
Tangible takeaways to save you time and improve whatever it is that you're working on.
You're listening to The Vault.
Thank you to Big Sky Economic Development for supporting The Vault at 201 North Broadway. Big Sky Economic Development provides leadership and resources for business creation, expansion, retention, new business recruitment, and community development. If you are starting a business, growing or expanding your business, diversifying your customer base, or maybe you're looking for business trainings to attend to continue to learn and grow, they're excited and here to help. Even if you're thinking of relocating your company into Billings, they're a resource for you. BSED also provides resources for community development initiatives by planning, partnering, and managing projects, and administering grants for redevelopment and placemaking. Their workforce development program brings together industry and education partners to anticipate and respond to community workforce needs. And they provide talent attraction and retention resources for your business to use under the community brand Better Off in Billings. BSED's Rock 31 program is focused on helping startups thrive. And in their location in downtown Billings, they have 2 floors dedicated to co-working and additional spaces throughout their building open to the community to host their meetings, events, and trainings. Visit bigskyeconomicdevelopment.org. Again, that's bigskyeconomicdevelopment.org, or follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Welcome to The Vault. Our guest today is one of the creative minds behind Stacked, a Montana grill in downtown Billings, Montana. He's the co-owner, designer, builder, and the executive chef that has taken a unique approach to culinary innovation. Starting as a food truck, Stacked in Montana in 2015, they've transformed their establishment into one of the most popular spots in downtown Billings. Their culinary philosophy is simple yet profound. They blend the best of Montana's Western cuisine with global flavors, reinventing familiar dishes with innovative layers of taste. Get ready to explore the culinary journey of Steven Heineman and uncover the secrets behind his innovative twist on classic dishes. Welcome, Steven.
Well, good morning.
We're excited to have you on The Vault. Really excited to have you joining us. All I'm thinking about, though, right now are your garlic fries, so I'll have to go get those later today.
Well, It's actually garlic truffle fries. Because we don't do straight up garlic fries. It's not our thing.
But the garlic truffle fries are some of my favorite.
Yes.
They're so
fries
good.
In town.
But I also have to say, your crispy Brussels sprouts and shrimp tacos are also some of my favorites.
Yeah.
You hear that as you go around. But everybody has their favorites no matter where they are, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I'm out, you know, that's what people do is they're like, so where do you go eat?
Yeah.
And my normal haunts are downtown as well, and I have my favorites. And, you know, I have people who are like, let's go eat at Stacked. And I'm, no, not tonight.
Just like, I eat there probably every day.
Just about.
So you're our first restaurant owner, chef that we've had on The Vault, which is really exciting to us. And we would really love to just know, did you grow up in Billings? And if you could just start telling us a little bit of where that culinary passion came from.
Well, you know, it's been a long journey getting here. I was actually born in Wyoming and raised there for most of my younger life, and we made a trip to move to Fromberg, Montana.
Oh, so small and classy.
You know, we moved from Casper, Wyoming to Fromberg, Montana, and that was a brand new experience for me to see a graduating class that year of like 8 people. And I was like, wow. And, you know, but it got me out of a box, and I really learned how to like people and grow into finding people of every walk of life to experience it with. And that's when I first experienced Billings. We would drive to Billings and, of course, go shopping and like, wow, I'm going to live in this big city someday. And, and then moved back to Wyoming where I went to college and did all that stuff, and then had a Army career and realized that Billings was not this big city that I thought it was. There are lots and lots of big cities, but one of the jokes on my journey is I grew up, as a poor, we got help, and when I got to Germany, I still thought that government cheese was like a real cheese. Where's the government cheese? And so, but grew up on it. And that's really when the culinary thing started to grow in me was being in Europe. And I just went out and ate and drank and ate and drank and traveled and
marvelous.
Did all of those things. And my thoughts always went back to, well, how would I get grandma to try this, or my mom or my sister, because this is a little weird. I like it, but I know that they wouldn't, but I want them to experience these flavors. And
that's a pretty adventurous palate, going from like government cheese to then being in Germany and going, I'm going to try these things that I might have never even heard of.
Or they have funny names and you're like, by the name of it, you're like, I just don't want to try it because of how it sounds. But then you do try it and you're like, oh, this is actually really good.
Yeah. And you experience things that you don't like as well. But sometimes those experiences are, in preparation, or maybe it's just a simple spice in that product that you didn't like. But to experience, real bakeries, and I say real bakeries instead of, it's not to bash the industry, but, when I grew up, it was the American Wonder Bread,
Yep.
sweetheart bakeries that you went to, and you got white bread or you got wheat bread, and that's all you got. But then to get to a country where, fresh bakery goods was there every day, and every corner had a butcher shop, and you'd travel to every country, and every country had the same thing happening, and it was different products and different tastes and different flavors, but people were really experiencing food at a much more intimate level, and I really enjoyed that. And I know growing up that food was a catalyst for bringing people together. And that's one of the things I really wanted to do when we created Stacked as well, was make it something that would bring people together. I don't want to be a bar. I don't want to be a fast food place. We are, casual dining. I guess that is how we're defined, but it's about bringing people together. And that's why we build a community table, not just for big groups, but to plop people in there together that may not always would have sat together, and you see what they eat, and you hear what they talk about, and they hear what you talk about, and you can become a community. If we get world leaders together and just have them sit and eat and drink together, maybe we could solve the world problems easier.
I think maybe, yeah.
On today's episode, we're solving world peace.
But I
World peace.
I love what you said about Europe, because I found that a little bit when we've traveled just a little bit into Europe of, you don't really have to go cups, or even as simple in like coffee shops, because everyone just comes and sits, and they're very intentional about their meals, their coffees with others, building relationships. They buy from the market that night before they go home. So it's just a very different culture.
Yeah, I couldn't fathom how I was going to get everything into that little tiny refrigerator that I wanted to buy for the week. And I was informed that you don't buy for the week. You might buy milk for the week, but everything else you buy on a daily basis. And it was just a super experience. And then, that took me to the East Coast and the South, and a whole new level of food to go down and, eat crawfish all the time, and crab crab was something you never got growing up. It was just something you heard about. And Mexican food in Texas, or Tex-Mex, and, amazing barbecue. And barbecue when I was growing up was, well, it means we put the burger on a charcoal
yeah.
grill. That was barbecue. But barbecue is something entirely different. That's grilling and that's barbecue. And there's two different things, but you don't realize, what I always tell people is, you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so until you've learned that there's something different, it's always the same thing in your mind.
So you talked a little bit about, so you were in Europe and then you did some traveling to the East Coast, South. Can you talk a little bit more in detail on that? I'm very curious. So I'm guessing you were over in Europe for the Army.
Yes, I was. And it's the same thing for down south.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I was stationed in Louisiana. I was stationed in Texas.
Oh, nice.
Did a little bit of time on the East Coast, and that just got me interested in more food. I'd never experienced pizza really until New York City or New Jersey, and
It's my
all
favorite.
of a sudden you got this pizza, but then you'll have somebody from Chicago go, no, that's not
That's
pizza.
not pizza, yeah.
And then you got Cleveland and whatever else. And it's just so great that there are so many different ways to do things. And you're like, that's just barbecue. And they're like, no, that's Texas barbecue, or that's St. Louis barbecue, or Carolina barbecue. I'm like, what's the difference? And then you taste the difference.
Yeah.
And that's the most fun. And the most fun about food is the people who are passionate about it. And that's what I loved. It was meeting people and doing things. Of course, we've got the opportunity to experience the World Food Championships along with, with the Burger Dive, first went in and paved the way for others to do. And that was such a great experience. But we got to meet so many amazing people. And it wasn't just the competing, because I can tell you, it really wasn't a lot of fun. It was a lot of work.
Stress.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was probably a stressful experience.
super stressful. We had some success, but it was really more than that. And it was getting to meet the people and getting to travel and getting to interact with people at a food level, again, to really pull it all together.
So coming back and doing that, what brought you back to Montana? Because you eventually came back.
Right. When I left the military, it was for medical reasons. And, I was like, oh, well, I don't have to be combat arms. I can do whatever. I'll just reclass. And they're like, no, we're downsizing. Here's your severance pay. Have a good life, And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. And,
we would like to thank you for your service to our
Yes, thank
country. And we really do appreciate
thanks.
you.
It's completely not necessary, but I do appreciate it. And it was really about, okay, where I'm going to start life over. And I still had this little tick in the back of my mind about Billings, Montana. And so I came to Billings to start life over. And, I experienced my first, we can't rent to you because you don't have a job.
Oh.
And so I felt that right away. I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And, luckily I'd gotten paid some severance pay. So the next time I walked into some place and they're like, well, you don't have a job. And I'm like, yeah, but what if I pay you a year's rent in advance?
Yeah.
And you're like, sold, and so got me in and I started doing things and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I
Did you know anyone here?
My sister lived
Okay.
here in Billings at that time. And so it was good. I did know people and I did know things and I'd been around the city before. It was still confusing at best, the street layouts here. And so it was still difficult to get around and find my way. But, you quickly meet people in Billings because Billings people are special. They're friendly for the most part and helpful. And as long as you are the same person, you can find those people anywhere.
Absolutely.
But staying here, I went out and I sold cars for a little while and, I was so good at it, but sure hated that job.
Nothing was giving you that tickle in your head.
Nothing giving
like
me
cooking.
that tickle in my head. And so my son was created and on the way. And I'm like, wow, I need to find a job that has benefits and things like this. And I simply answered an ad for Wendy's of Montana.
Oh, okay.
And
Awesome.
operated by Sam McDonald at that time and later Greg, both amazing people. And got my foot in the door, then in my mind at that time, I said, I'm going to take this job because it has guaranteed income, has insurance, and I'll do it while I look for a real job. and I didn't know what those real jobs were. I mean, I'd applied to, work at the prison here and looked at, the police force maybe because I'd been an MP also for a while in the military, and being still rather injured at that time, it just didn't pan out. And as I got into the restaurant business, and some people say, well, that's not the restaurant business, but it is, because you learn how to take care of people. And I already knew how to take care of my staff and my team, other than that experience we talked about, 4-letter words and, cursing at people, and having come from an environment where I was never stationed with females at that time in the military. There were no females in combat units. I saw females when I went and picked up my paycheck or went to finance or did something like that. And so when I got out, and the first time I made somebody cry, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to jail. And I'm like, it's how we do business. I yell, you do things, and go in the back, do some push-ups or something, and come back, and everything will be all right then.
They're like, why'd you tell me to do 100 push-ups?
But what I realized was I had to, grow my leadership style to bring people along, not just command them, and go back to, the things I learned with my own teams in the military. It's about building teamwork and being in the trenches with them, and being willing to do what they do and learn from them, because sometimes the people that work for you and with you know more than you do.
It's kind of like that. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, right?
Yeah. And maybe not smarter, but maybe just people that have more life experiences in this. And I know as I've built, stacked, and grown from it, there are 100 people I could go back and thank for giving us this piece of information, or this tool, or this passion, or this direction. Sometimes it was a menu direction. Sometimes it was just creative things. And all of those people along the way are really what built Stacked. I got to take all the credit for it, but it really isn't mine. And I always hope that I give back that recognition to my people, my team, my family, about all the things they've done as well, because my team really is my family, and there are some that I get really mad at, and there are some that I love, and there are some that I don't really love, but they're family, and we put up with each other.
It's just how it goes.
It's just the work environment and that family.
So you were at Wendy's for a while.
I did Wendy's,
and then maybe led a team there or did something.
I did, and I grew really quickly, and they're like, oh, we have a restaurant in Sheridan, Wyoming, and we know you've only been working for us for 2 months, but we want you to go run this. And so I moved to Sheridan, Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
And lived there for a time, and then got recruited away by then Hardee's, which was bought out later by Carl's Jr., but they could offer me more money because they had a breakfast day part, and so you expand that potential for money. And so when you first start in life, you're really money driven, especially when you have family and new child,
little
and
kids,
diapers are expensive,
and diapers and school clothes, and everybody has their wants, and you're experienced by that, and so then I did that for a while, and then decided I was bigger and better than that, and I really wasn't, but left and moved to Denver, where I was working for Cracker Barrel out of Loveland, Colorado. And it was really super fun until like Mother's Day. And it was the most horrible day in the universe. It's just the busiest day of the year for everybody. But, and then that took me to, I didn't enjoy that in particular, the early mornings.
Oh, yeah, because they open early.
Yeah, they open at like 6 a.m. and so you're there at
Way earlier.
3 a.m. if you're the opening manager, and driving back and forth from Denver just as the weather got worse didn't make me very happy, and it was a long drive, and so I took on a restaurant job in Denver, and worked for a company called Zteca doing Mexican food, and Zteca became Qdoba.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. How
down
cool.
the road. And so it was great. It was a great journey, lots of learning experiences in that. And it was really the eye-opener, along with some Cracker Barrel stuff, of what food things were possible when you have these ingredients and you've moved your mind out of that, put a burger down, flip it over, put it on a bun. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Set recipes,
Yeah, those set recipes and those fine-tuned menus. It's important. If it wasn't important, there wouldn't be so many of those restaurants. And so I'll go to one once in a while too. So it's not to diss anybody. But it grew what I was thinking about in food. And it was at that time in Denver, my mind started to spin about, well, what if?
Yeah.
What if, and it's just the downtime of thinking and going, well, what if I opened a place that was like this and combined this and this? And you just throw those things around in your mind. And, and then my career brought me back to Billings because my family was up here, and I got here and became part of Pizza Hut. And, of course, Pizza Hut decided they needed me to move to Wyoming too.
You're like, I just keep getting
I can't stay in Billings. And so I left and I went to Gillette, Wyoming for about a year, and then came back to Billings. And because I said, I'll go for a year, but I'm coming back here. And so I came back here and built a career, not just with Pizza Hut, but with Yum Brands, because I moved into a position of the inspector, for the brand. And so I took care of Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, part of Minnesota.
Oh, wow. So
And so I was running around just inspecting restaurants. And
you're like, okay, so they're letting me live in Billings, but I have to travel all over the place.
Yeah. And so it was a huge experience. Did that for a couple of years, and then became a region director, region manager for another Pizza Hut franchise. And of course, it wasn't in Billings. I lived in Billings because I had my family here, but I traveled and took care of Wyoming, northern Colorado.
That's a lot of car time in
Utah,
these states.
Windshield time,
Yeah, and so it was a lot of windshield time, and windshield time led to more thinking about this restaurant possibility, and the opportunity actually came up during a camping trip. And visiting with some friends, and those friends said, if you ever have a business plan around this, you're always cooking and talking about this restaurant. And I'm like, what makes you think I don't have a business plan? This is my idea. Here we go. And so it kind of went from there.
So people talk about dreaming. They talk about it, but they don't actually they're not sitting there writing it down.
Right.
Nobody just chooses to do a business plan.
I think you have to, and it's funny. I just put a quote. We have a chalkboard door in our kitchen dining room at home, and we have a new exchange student staying with us this year after being empty nesters for 8 years. But I put things up there that are either about his culture or food that we want to build. He's from Hungary, but just this week, I put up a little statement I found in a little book my wife gave me, and it talked about being intentional, Find out who you want to be and be intentional about it. And I think that's, even when you dream, you have to dream intentionally. And part of the fun of dreaming is building that plan. How are we going to get from A to B? And, being prepared for opportunity is the most important thing. And maybe your dreams never come true, but you have to be ready when that opportunity comes along.
Kind of manifesting it into reality, like thinking about it, manifesting it, and then it comes. That dream is no longer just a dream; it's the reality.
Yeah,
truly.
Well, I love that you were so prepared on a day. So on an everyday basis, I help businesses get started. Very rarely do I have somebody come to me with the business plan. It's typically like, I've got this idea.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, let's figure it out.
But can you give us some more on that? Because I think that's a detail that you're like, well, I did have it, but you've had these really great experiences. You were getting exposure to some of these larger companies and how they run, how they function, manage inventory, all of those things.
Yeah, so many
So
skills.
how did you even know? Because I would think I don't even know where to start with a business. I don't do that every day. So can you talk a little bit more on how you had that and give us more detail?
I mean, really, you have to look at what your vision is first, and because your vision and your dream is what motivates you, and so you have to put those dreams down first. What do I want to see? What do I want this to be? What is this going to be about? And I don't mean come up with your business statement or your company,
Mission,
motto, mission statement, whatever you want to call it. Don't come up with that. Just say, I want to have the best Mexican restaurant in town that serves this. I want to be known for this, or I want people to come here and feel this. And so those were the things that I really built at first. I built recipes and food because I'd been doing that at home and for family and friends. And, I started doing that at home. And then I became intentional about some of those things and said, well, I want to try to do this that I saw done back there. And it sounds crazy, but when I experienced Europe, there was no internet. And so anything that you had was written down or you found it in cookbooks. And the internet really became this amazing source of inspiration to just look up a recipe and run with it. And you're like, oh, what do you mean I can't get this spice in Billings, Montana? Oh, I can't get that flour in Billings, Montana. Oh, I can't get this meat in Billings, Montana. What do you mean I can't get pancetta in Billings, Montana? Things like that. Yeah. And as the world became smaller, transportation, we now have great things here in Billings.
You can now get pancetta.
Yeah, you can get
now,
those great
but I know that you
quality.
couldn't. Yeah.
And it's great quality. It's not the same as walking into a butcher and going, here, I need that sliced. But we have great grocery outlets here. Albertsons does a great job, and they carry a lot of fresh products in town and country, and whoever was there before that as well. And so we do have a lot of great things. But the world getting smaller has helped all of us experience a bigger world. Mm-hmm. We experience the bigger world through it becoming smaller. How strange is that, right?
My favorite thing is I could not know how to spell a word in a recipe, and I'm like, I know this is the name of it, but I'm just going to phonetically write it out. And then, it pops up, and I'm like, that's what I needed.
Yes, it is that, definitely.
So from the camping trip, you have the business plan.
What made you go, okay, we can do this?
It was really just going out. And we looked at a couple of places, and it didn't work out. My person didn't want to be an investor because they didn't want to get into business together. They wanted to finance the business or help finance the business, and part of it was done through the bank as well. But they were like, we don't know anything about the restaurant business. We don't want to be this. We just want to help you get your dream started, and here's this money. Pay it back, pay us a small interest rate. And so it was a huge opportunity, and can never, ever thank those folks enough for our dream to get off the ground. But it was really just going out and beating the street. And one of the things I realized early on was that food trucks were becoming a thing. And even if they weren't food trucks, I felt like you needed this as a marketing tool, because the restaurants who were really doing things the best were putting food in people's mouths, because it's hard to sell an idea, but it's easy to sell food.
Yeah.
And if you make good food,
people want it.
People want it. If you go out, and we did breweries for a long time, and for about a year, and we did some regular food truck stuff, and did some events, and just started putting our food in people's mouths. And it just became this thing that we did. And so after we created the restaurant, we still kept the food truck to do some events and catering and things like that. But that's when we started doing like the Taste of Billings. And you're not making any money, but
you're sure
you
getting your
are
name out there.
meeting, you are meeting and letting people taste your food, 500, 1,000 people at a time. And that's part of it. And it became a great thing. You love winning awards and, medals and things like that, but it was really more about the marketing and the meeting of people. In fact, I had other participants at these come up and they said, the only reason you win this is because people like you. Your food's not better. And I'm like, well, whatever it takes.
Whatever you need to say. But I would say it seems like from an outsider looking in, you guys were pretty early adopters in Montana of the food truck. And now there's lots in Billings, which is exciting. But you guys seem to be some of the first. And I know, and I love hearing you say like it's a great marketing tool and giving back, but you are very involved in the community.
Yeah,
you are at those depot events that are new, cutting edge. The community hasn't done them before. And you're the one doing it. Like the cook-off competition that we did was really fun too, that you guys were like huge sponsors of.
We tried to do the Stampede is what it was.
Because we did it and it was fun.
And it was great fun and we wanted to keep it going, but it was so hard because we wanted to pull people from the general public. My whole idea is the internet, Facebook is just filled with amazing cooks and amazing barbecue people and all these folks. And I'm like, why don't you and 7 friends get together and build a team? But we were finding that people couldn't get 8 of their friends together all at the same time, the same place, and you would end up with 1 or 2 teams instead of the 6 to 8 that was necessary for the event. And so we just kind of had to step off from that event because if it's not working and bringing money to the depot, and I wasn't making money on it. It was really more of just giving back to the community in that sense.
Also,
we just had to change it.
Yeah, an opportunity to meet new people.
Yes.
In a fun environment.
Yeah, meet new people, find new people, maybe get somebody excited about being in the food industry.
Yeah.
Because as you talk to every restaurant, every person in the food industry right now, staffing is probably our biggest opportunity. And it's not that there aren't good people out there. There aren't enough good people out there.
Yeah.
I have a great staff. I have wonderful people around me. But there are times where we've even closed the doors for a night or two because these key people are sick. And you can't just, it's better to not give service than to give really bad service.
Yeah.
Or really bad food. And so we've made some tough decisions like that in the past. And, we may need to make them in the future again. There was a time where we stopped doing dinner for about 5 months at the end of COVID because people had just left and they'd gone on to do other things, and I'm happy for them and I'm excited for them, but I couldn't see the vision of doing a restaurant that didn't have the right leadership. And at that time, since I started Stack, 2 knee replacements, a spinal fusion, and all these things that have caused me to not be as present as I once was. Working open to close 6 days a week, and so my team is really, really important to how the restaurant goes at this point.
And we kind of glanced over it, but I'd love to. So you were talking about you had the food truck, and then how did you find, because you have a really great location right on a very popular street of Billings. So can you talk a little bit about what that process was like of finding and securing your location?
Really, it was pure luck. Because I'd actually come downtown. I knew I wanted to be downtown because I'd been in Denver and the Lodi thing and kind of that feel where it's a community and you live off of each other rather than just a destination. So I knew I wanted to be part of that. We came downtown. I saw that the pizza place was going out of business. And I'm like, oh, we could probably start there. It's really small. Well, it's Doc Harper's at this point because they had already, secured that building. And I'm like, dang. And so my wife and I were like, well, let's just go have lunch somewhere. And so we wandered into the soup place. And as we wandered into the soup place, there was a sign that said, for sale.
Happy coincidence.
It was, it was kind of a meant to be kind of thing. And not only was it a location, but they had a liquor license, restaurant beer, wine.
Yep.
License and available. And they had an X on the calendar of when they were closing and being done. And we pushed things quickly as we could forward. And, there were a lot of hoops to jump through. Anybody who thinks that applying for a liquor license is easy,
No.
be my guest. It's just lots and lots and lots of paperwork. And then, anybody who's invested in your business, has to be part of that background check and all that thing. And so it was a giant undertaking, but it happened. And then construction, we did most of the construction ourselves. Brought in people to do, specific things, and then grew from there.
And where did the name Stacked come from?
Well, Stacked originally was Stacked in Montana, and we are still Stacked in Montana LLC. It's about layers of flavors is really what it comes down to. And so that's how we came up with that stacked idea. And then as we were looking for the right sign, and we totally redid our logo to do the restaurant. Originally, Stacked was kind of like this flame thing because it was all about grilling and doing those kind of things. But we wanted to refine what we were doing because we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to do grilling and great burgers, but we also wanted to do great steaks and seafood and salads and all these other things. And so we went and we just started experimenting. And we had a friend that goes, well, why don't you just be Stacked, a Montana grill? And I'm like, well, that's awesome. And so we took that. And
I'm
then
taking that.
my wife went out and she found the S that's now stacked. And, you can't even find it in your, fonts on your computer unless you do a specific search for this style of font. And she's like, that's it. And I'm like, that's it. We just need the S. And I don't want it to look like Superman or, something else. And so we designed it and built the colors and decided that's what our color scheme would be. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, I think it's lucky, but it's also back to that being very intentional.
Yeah.
And we knew that we wanted to not just build a restaurant. I discovered this early on, working for all these great brands through the years that anybody can sell food, but you have to sell a brand. And so you have to sell an idea that goes along with that. And I think that's what attracted the folks who brought us to the airport, and decided to use our brand as part of their restaurant.
Can you talk a little bit about that too? It's a newer, now with the airport's renovation, they've added a restaurant where they used to not really have anything. Right. And now you guys are it.
Well, we share that. They have Logan's Diner too that does part of that, and they do the breakfast end, and then they do some lunch items and things that they feel they need that, Stack doesn't do. They need a chicken strip. Okay. Do a chicken strip. And, we do different things, but it's great to be a part of that. It's the Billings Airport. We are never going to get rich on the Billings Airport, but every brick in the wall is one more brick towards building a house, as I like to put it. And it's a great opportunity for us to put our name and our brand out there. And they've done a super job doing it. There are obstacles that go with it, as in, their suppliers versus our suppliers.
Yeah.
A lot of times I go out and I just buy things, and then you have to minimize the menu because they clearly can't offer a full menu. They have to be able to do things on a more simplified basis. And find things that work both ways. And so the menu is a little different. A lot of the core items are the same, but their fry is just a little bit different than our fry downtown, or their taco shell is just a little bit different because their supplier doesn't have the Trevino's local tortillas that we like to use, but they're using the same comparable product and doing a great job of it. And it's just a matter of me making sure that things are going great there, and they do a great job communicating and training and taking feedback and trying to move that forward. And I think it's a great step when people come into the city or leave the city and see that our airport is part of the community and not just one more chain in a restaurant, in an airport.
Right, and then they see that, and then if they're flying in, and then they see it downtown, they're
Yes.
like, "Oh, this is a local restaurant," and I love that. I think that's a really great thing, and what a value add for our airport as we start to modernize. And so I think that's a great first backdrop when people arrive.
Yes.
Of having a little bit of a local flair.
What was the hardest transition for you in that? Going from, I guess just wholly food truck to brick and mortar to now having 2 physical locations you manage?
Well, I don't manage that one up there. They take care of it. That's the best part of it. But really, it's about staffing and finding the right people and finding the people that you can put your trust in that are in it with the same vision you are. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same. They don't have to be motivated by the same stuff, but they have to have a vision for where they want their career to go or our business to go, and I say our as in it's their business too. The people who work at Stacked are Stacked. It's not just about me, because it goes on and it's still great even when I'm not there. And it's not because of me, it's because of them, and it's because of their passion for vision and pushing things forward. I came in this morning prior to COVID, we used to put flowers on every table and preset the tables. And we kind of got away from doing all that. And I walked in this morning and somebody decided we're putting flowers back on these tables. And I know who it was. It was my front of house manager. And it was a great move. And I was pleasantly surprised. But again, it's their passion for building Stacked and making an environment that welcomes people.
I would say so, and I love hearing that because I think as people working in an organization, we're the brand's ambassadors, right? But I think that starts with the leader of the company always, and then it goes to the people. But what are some of those leadership qualities that you have in yourself, or things that you look for in team members as you hire them? Because you don't just hire anyone, right? You want them to feel like they're a great fit for Stacked, and just curious what that is and what that looks like.
It's growing and changing. I know that when I started Stacked, I was a much different leader than I am now, because at that time we were new and it was my vision, and there was a lot of my, this is how I want, this is how it's going to be, and now it's something entirely different. I learned a lot through leadership over the years, and like I say, allowing people to be owners. And you always hear it, act like an owner in different organizations, but to really have people step in and do that and act like an owner, and you being accepting of them being an owner is vitally important, because you can't just say it, you have to live it. It can't be all about absolutely what you want. Like I talked about earlier, sometimes those people know more than you know. They experience more. So every time we do a menu revision, we do it as a team. I let them create. I create. Sometimes we take their dishes or my dishes and we tone them down. We take servers and say, hey, what are your experiences? What do you like selling? What are people looking for that we don't have? And so we work as a team to build this vision of the next step of Stacked. And obviously, as an owner, sometimes you have to go, okay, we're not doing that, or we're going to do this, or, you really like this item on the menu, but it's hugely wasteful and is costing us money instead of making money. So we have to get rid of it. Or that really, really bad thing called price increases.
Yeah.
That come from, the wages
Supply chain,
absolutely
wages.
changed during COVID. Supply chains, prices go up and they never come back down.
No.
Some things fluctuate a little bit, beef pricing will fluctuate and things like that. But once your fries cost X, they're always going to cost X. Once you pay this for labor,
Yep.
you are never going to be able to pay less. And as soon as, this is that same debate that when we talk about minimum wages and stuff like that, that gets into politics and what drives what. And, we can raise the minimum wage, but then everybody has to raise prices to pay for it. And, and it's not just minimum wage. It was COVID. It was demand in the market for the teams that were necessary to run restaurants when people were opening more restaurants, when there wasn't enough people already.
Yeah.
And so you just had to pay more, and you had to pay more, and you had to pay more. And that doesn't come from nowhere. And it falls back onto the consumer, sadly. And it's a sticky balancing act to balance between what's profitable and then pricing yourself out of the business.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious with just in restaurants overall, you guys have those because you're serving people at later parts of the day or sometimes early. What are some scheduling things that you guys do with your team, with yourself, so that you don't have to be there 24/7 and then have no time at home with family and friends?
Well, I think restaurants do that across the board, and it's just spreading people out so they're staggered in and staggered out. And we have a tendency to schedule people from 8 to 5, or just as an example. But maybe your business isn't from 8 to 5. Maybe your business is from 8:15 until 4:45. And so you can, as soon as you start to make those little tweaks and you're like, well, that was only a half hour, but that's a half hour a day for 300 days a year. What financial impact does that have on you? And it's the same thing as we talk about menus and costs of items. And they're like, well, this item costs this much and this costs this much. And I'm like, and they're like, it's only $1. But I'm like, we use 100 of these a week. Put that over 52 weeks and all of a sudden there's your pay raise that you wanted, or there's that new piece of equipment that we need. And you get to that point where we're almost at that 10-year point and equipment gets old and needs replaced, and dining rooms need upgraded and things like that.
And things cost more, and those costs go up too. I mean, the equipment,
kitchen equipment is very pricey.
Furniture,
Yes.
all of that is.
It's all cost.
Everything costs money.
And
you can't depreciate it anymore.
you can't depreciate it. You can only depreciate it so long until it's not worth anything. And then you're like at the bank begging for money, and they're like, well, it says your equipment isn't worth anything. You're like, well, you're right, probably.
You're right. One thing I want to ask, because you have a lot of business experience, all your years of owning Stacked, but also in the years past with Wendy's and Pizza Hut and Cracker Barrel. What is a tip or just general piece of information that you would supply somebody that is looking at jumping into either a food truck or a restaurant?
I think, again, it's about intentionality. Intentionality means don't hedge all your bets on a lottery ticket. Be intentional about, what your product's worth, how much you've invested, how much of your own time you've invested. Be intentional in your scheduling, being intentional with the food you buy and the items you buy and what you buy from where. And really intentionality is, I think, what makes businesses successful. And if you don't have the knowledge, or you're lacking in some way, you have to be intentional about going out and finding that help. And I mean, I know that we've reached out to Big Sky Economic Development in our past and said, what resources do you have? Because we may need, we may need help. We may need someone to come tell us where and how to buy food better and how to, maximize menu pricing and things like that. And luckily we've found ways to fight our way through it and use some other resources. But just like you all do here, there are resources out there, and you have to be intentional about going and finding those people. And sometimes, I mean, I can tell you that when I started looking at advertising, I was very intentional about advertising and the money I wanted to spend. I went to local people that I knew were spending money on advertising, and I said, why do you do this? How do you do it? And how do I do it the same as you do? And obviously it wasn't restaurant people that I was competing with, but they were friends and associates that I'd met and made over the years, and they gave me insight to what they did and how they did it. And some of those were great things like, hey, don't spend your money doing this because it really doesn't pay back. But that's where I got the insight to get involved in the community and be intentional about being visible, being intentional about having your name seen, whether it's participating or supporting. And it doesn't mean spending money to support an event. Volunteer, I
mean, you have your stacked stuff on now too, which is even those little things are so important, because from someone who does do some of the advertising and things like that, not with a huge budget, a one-page ad in something is like the amount of money that is. I'm just like, gosh, you'd then want to have unless you have like gobs of advertising money,
which small businesses typically don't.
I mean, but it's
don't.
insane. And you're like, what is your actual return on that? Where if you're at an event, you're doing things like that, people are meeting you, they're getting to know you, and then the next time they're like, let's go out to eat, they think of you.
Right. And be intentional with all of those pieces. Even my business cards, I thought it was a little narcissistic at first, but my wife got them. She had my picture printed on the back side of it.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, why would you do that? And she said, well, why do real estate people do that?
They recognize you.
Because you want to be recognized and you want to have things out there, and we want to put our brand on everything. And she bought stickers to put on to-go boxes. And I'm like, this is a waste of money. And she's like, no. When people see trash, they see where other people are buying from.
Yeah.
There's a reason that McDonald's has their emblem on every fry box and every bag. And it's not because it costs less, it costs more, but it's an intentional thing. Trash can sell just like any other thing. But seeing somebody else, you don't have to ask them who they ordered that from. You're like, oh,
I see that.
I'm going to get that tomorrow.
Or where'd they get
that
lunch
looks
from?
great,
Like
yeah.
you look at the logos. I think that's an interesting. I've
I
never
didn't
thought
even
of it
think
that
about
way,
it that way.
I think it's true, because you're like, where did they, like if they come in with a to-go something and they're eating at their desk, you're like, what'd you get? Where'd you get that from?
And you still have to be intentional and thoughtful about those things, because I can't afford to buy stacked logo cups for soft drinks. So I use the ones that I buy from Coke, But I'm pushing their product. I sell their product. It's great. There are times where we've, used foam cups for to-go coffees and things like that. And there for a while, we bought the little coffee.
Oh, Zarfs.
Yeah, Zarfs or whatever you want to call them. And we stickered those to do to-go coffees. But we also realized that I realized I don't want to be a coffee place.
Yeah. Well, I know coffee shops that they buy the white cups and they stamp them.
Yeah.
They hand stamp them. But I think, like, if you think about your cost on that, it's crazy how much they'd probably end up having to pay to buy them stamped. But then you can have your team sit there in lower times, stamp it. They have more of like a a touch point. Like you're like, they're
It's a
not
part of your
every
brand at
single
that
one
point,
is perfect.
Yeah,
And that's great.
And that's wonderful. I think it's intentionality behind getting your brand out there. And you have to have a brand. You can't just be Bob's, whatever, unless you have something to say, I'm Bob's Burgers, or whatever the thing might be to put on there, and then it equates in people's minds. You have to become memorable.
Yeah.
And intentional.
That's good.
And memorable. And memorably good. And so part of that is when you do an event, don't send people out to do your event. Go do your event.
Yeah.
Be a part of that. Meet the people who are supporting your business.
And I think that's great from your, the customer client community standpoint, but also from a team perspective. Your team sees you doing that. They know like he's out here working alongside me doing these tasks that aren't always the most fun, but he's there doing it with me. He's not just telling me to do that. And I think that as employees, that goes so much farther than when you have a boss or someone that's like, go do that, but they're never alongside you doing some of those things.
Yeah, truly. I mean, when people ask me what I do and they're like, oh, you're the owner. And I'm like, yeah, I'm also the dishwasher and the bathroom cleaner. And
you have to do it all.
Before I got here this morning, I was fixing equipment because I didn't want to buy a whole new piece of equipment because one little knob broke. And so I'm trying to figure out how to build a knob in my garage at home. But it's going to work.
It'll be great.
Yes, it will.
It's just hard to find metric parts in Billings, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, if you need anything, we probably have some connections we can get you connected with. Well, we want to say thanks for being here today. And we like to end each episode with some rapid fire questions. But before we get into that, we're going to go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor. Thank you to the Small Business Development Center for sponsoring The Vault at 201 North Broadway. The Small Business Development Center offers free personalized support from business plans to financial projections and beyond, empowering small businesses to thrive. Reach out to us at bigsky.economicdevelopment.org.
So rapid fire questions, huh?
Okay, so we're going to jump in. I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
What's your favorite item on your menu?
Beyond steak, because steak is my favorite everything, I like our burger, and it's the Rancher burger, and it's really exciting because it wasn't one that I created. It was one that my son created, and it was one that, graced the magazine covers around town and things like that, and so super good, my favorite.
Okay, we'll be going to try that.
I know. I'm like, oh, maybe I should ditch my lunch that I got today.
Yeah, Rancher burger, it's got breaded mozzarella on it.
Oh,
and
okay.
Oh, yeah.
pepper jack and,
Love it.
ranch aioli and roasted red peppers and onion
Stop,
rings.
okay, now I'm like starving.
It's crazy, but it's
My
so
stomach's
good.
growling.
Yeah.
It's great.
My question for you is, what is your most favorite place you've ever traveled?
Germany was probably my favorite place I've ever traveled, but it's so hard because I just spent so much time there. I love Mexico. I just love Mexico. And I love Mexican food and the flavors. And I also realized that Mexico doesn't cook the way I want them to. And so...
So you do it yourself?
I do it myself.
They do make great margaritas, I must say.
Yeah.
So margaritas are different in Mexico.
Yeah, and they don't make them as well either, because I make great margaritas. But
well, we gotta come.
That's inside information.
We can get the kind of tequila that you recommend.
Our goal, or my goal now, and my wife hates me for it, is I want to open an upscale Mexican restaurant in Billings, Montana.
Oh, I love
where
it.
we have amazing steaks and amazing seafood, and it's done a lot in a Baja style instead of just a Mexican style. And so we take things and do them that way. But
I look forward to that.
we'll see.
I think we could use it.
Let me know.
It needs an investor and lots of employees and a location, and it needs a full liquor license and all that stuff.
I mean,
Oh, God. I don't even know if there's any liquor license available here
There
in
is
Billings
not.
right now.
There is not.
Which is hard.
But we'll put that out there for all of our vault listeners. If you want to invest in Steven's Baja Mexican joint, you just reach out.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. But it's a bigger vision than that, because we just need something different than steak and potatoes. Great places to eat out at.
Chips
It's a
and
dream.
salsa.
It's starting in the dream phase.
Yeah,
We'll
it's a dream
manifest
phase.
it into reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is one thing you do to maintain a work-life balance?
Well, work-life balance now is created by the fact that I can't work as hard and as long as I used to. But it was always, as I started to step back, it was simply making sure I had the right people driving the wagon forward. And again, it's that same vision. And I think balance is hugely important. Family is so important. And that's one of the reasons. I'll lay it right out for you. When I started Stacked, I worked harder than I ever worked in my life, probably including my military career.
Which is saying something.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe not. Running Stacked and owning Stacked, I probably make less money than I ever made, including the military. But I'm happier than I've ever been because of the people that I work with and the people I get to serve. And being a part of Billings, there still isn't a time that I don't drive across the rims, on Airport Road as I head home and look downtown Billings and go, wow, I can't believe that I'm a part of this. And, this isn't a giant city. It's a really great big town with some really wonderful people. But I still can't believe, even 10 years into this thing, that I was lucky enough to be a part of this. And where Stack goes in the future, I don't know. But it's exciting to be part of this.
It is
That's
exciting.
Awesome. That was an even better answer than I could have ever imagined.
And we have a couple last things. So where can people find you? Website, social media? How do they get in touch?
Easily. Obviously, Facebook, that's kind of been our marketing for a long time. We still do most of our marketing through Facebook or a little bit of Instagram. We do have our website, which is great. And the great thing about our website is I have a great team that works it and runs it, and they take care of all that stuff. But it has a live Facebook feed
Oh, so you get to
on my
see all
website.
the updated.
So as soon as I post something to Facebook, it posts to my website too.
Oh, awesome.
And so they can see that. And we have menus and history and all those things there. And we also carry the airport menu there as well. The great part is, you get to see what your marketing is doing through your website. Mm-hmm. Because as we get those monthly analytics, obviously, Billings is who's looking at it most. But that's followed up by Denver, Salt Lake City, and Portland.
Cool.
Oh.
And
as
those
the
are some big markets.
viewers, and it's truly the airport that's bringing people in, and people are Googling where they want to go eat and what they want to do, and so it feels great when you see the analytics and see how it works. And
So that website is stackedmontanagrill.com.
yes,
And it's Stacked on Facebook, and that's where
Yes.
you can find them and you can read the menu. I will give you some suggestions: the Brussels sprouts, the garlic truffle fries we mentioned in the beginning. I love your Cobb salad, but you call it something else. It's so good.
it's all the junk.
all the junk.
Oh, I love that.
It's so good, and
It's all the junk that's in the salad
it's
station.
so good. It's
What
one of
makes
my
a
favorite
salad
salads.
good is all the other stuff you put in it besides the lettuce.
Absolutely. It's got chicken, it's got bacon, it's got blue cheese crumbles. Oh, it's so good. It's one of my favorites. And then obviously my shrimp tacos are my go-to. I love those shrimp tacos with the wasabi dressing.
Yeah.
We're all starving. Well, thank you for joining us on The Vault. It's been so much fun, and we can't wait to go eat.
My pleasure, and it's been a real pleasure coming to visit with y'all.
Oh, thank
Thank you.
Thanks.
We We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Make sure you are subscribed to The Vault at 201 North Broadway, wherever you podcast, including YouTube.
Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway and Instagram at TheVault_201.
Don't forget to visit us at thevault at 201.com and subscribe to our newsletter.
We will see you next time.
Bye.